Okay, what is up, YouTube? This is going to be a basic disassemble and assemble of the notoriously hard to disassemble and assemble Ruger 22 Mark II long rifled semi-automatic pistol. A couple things about this is, first off, this is obviously a badass gun. If you have this gun, like, you've already won, so no need to worry about anything else. But it can still be nice to take it apart and put it back together. I, of course, am a total noob at this, so I'm trying to make this video very noob friendly if I can, because I needed a lot of help with this and I was not able to get much from the other videos. They seem to assume that people who were watching them weren't noobs, and in my case they were obviously wrong. So hopefully this helps some other noobs like me out there. So let's go ahead and get started on this sweet little thing. It doesn't look just cool, it just looks like a good gun. Anyways, first thing I wanted to do is make sure the safety's off. This will impede you later. It doesn't do anything now, but later you're going to be like, oh man, I wish I had the safety off the whole time. Second thing you want to do is always make sure you do a safety check. So you're going to go ahead and take out the clip, pop that out, pop the magazine out. You want to check out the chamber. Look inside there, make sure there's no cartridges in there. If not, good to go. Fire the gun or pull the trigger facing away from you, right? Safety. So we now know that there's no bullets inside the gun, that it is totally safe for us to work with. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to look at the back of the grip. We're going to see the mainspring housing and the mainspring housing latch. You can come up with multiple ways of getting this thing off, however you feel is the best. For me, I just use a screwdriver. The gun's kind of already dinged up anyway, so I'm not really too worried about dinging it up too bad or whatever. Pop that up. You just push it under there like you saw me doing. Pop it up. One thing to note is you're going to want to make sure this thing is all the way back. Otherwise it gets kind of latched, so you can maybe it gets latched against there, and it's no good. You don't want that. So go ahead and work it out. Some of these guns apparently have incredibly tight tolerances on the machined parts, so it might be hard to actually jimmy it out of there when it's newer. But once it gets to be kind of older like mine, you should have no problem. As you see, I didn't have any problem. Next thing you want to do is go ahead and pull this thing straight down. What you're doing is you're taking this pin right here, this bolt stop pin, out from right here. And so basically, obviously, it's a bolt stop pin, so it stops the bolt from flying back when you're firing and destroying your face and making everybody feel really bad for you. And obviously, you don't want that. So we'll go ahead and take that off and go on to the next step. The next step is going to be taking the bolt itself out. This isn't too bad. You can see it's not coming out right now. What you want to do is point the gun straight towards the sky. It looks right now like I'm actually kind of pointing towards you guys, but that's because you're facing down. You're looking straight down. But what I'm really doing is pointing the gun straight up the ceiling. So go ahead and do that. Pull the trigger. Give it some shakes. You hear that little clicking down there, that clinking around? That's the hammer strut. Clinking where it needs to go to get this thing out. Basically, it's letting the hammer down into the cocked position. Let go of the trigger, the bolt should come right out. Beautiful. Next thing we want to do is actually take the receiver off. So that's pretty straightforward. Mine, again, doesn't take too much pressure. It probably was originally very tightly toleranced. Now it's not as much. So let's go ahead and push it forward with my left thumb. Pops right off. What's going on is this little machined square right here is actually keeping everything in place. It goes right into this square hole here, so that's the only way it latches. That's actually the only thing really kind of snugging it down. So you just pop that off and it comes right out. Next thing you want to do is you want to look at your hammer. And again, I'm such a noob that when I look at a hammer, I say, oh wow, that's a hammer. I had no idea that was what a hammer looked like. But apparently in this gun at least this is what a hammer looks like. And this right here, when you have it like that, hopefully you're able to distinguish that, is in the cocked position, and that's where you want the gun to be. If you look back here, you can see that what's going on is there's two bars. There's one like this, there's one like this. And the one like this is, I don't know what it is, but I call it the retaining clip, or retaining pin. And the one like this is the hammer strut. It's connected to the hammer, and it struts the hammer, whatever that really actually means. And what you want is you want to be on top of the retaining pin. You might find that your gun, when you look down there, looks like this. Hopefully you guys can see that. And if not, what it's looking like is here's the retaining pin, here's the hammer strut, it's underneath. And that makes it so the hammer cannot move, basically. It can go up, but it can't go down. And that's not good because that will stop the bolt from going in after we put the receiver back on. So it looks like this. The hammer is now in the uncocked position, which, again, total noob like me, had no idea, so confused. So hopefully I'll share that knowledge with you guys. This is uncocked. So what you want to do to get it out of the uncocked position, go ahead and flip it up, shake it around a little bit. You can see I'm shaking it. Just make it so that it goes in the cocked position. You can see, yay, it's in the cocked position. That thing's on top of the retaining pin. You're good to go. Once you have that, what you want to do is go ahead and take your receiver, fit it up again, push it in, not too much pressure, just a little bit for me, you know. Just make sure the receiver is hanging over the main body, just a tiny bit, 1/16 of an inch, maybe half a millimeter, something along those lines. Really not very much. Next thing you want to do is go ahead and put your bolt back in. So if you've done everything I've told you to so far, it's just going to slide back in. See? There she goes. If it doesn't slide back in, there's two problems that I'm aware of. One is that maybe the safety's on. Safety's on, it won't slide back in. Make sure you have the safety off. The other thing is maybe your hammer is in the uncocked position still. So to remedy that without having the bolt in, you take the gun, point towards the ceiling once again, pull that trigger, shake it around. It'll put the hammer in the uncocked position, or the cocked position, and at that point your bolt should slide in and out easily, as mine does. So next thing you want to do is where it gets a little fun and where it gets a little interesting for those who have no idea what's going on like me, or until you learn what's going on like I did. And you want to actually position the gun like so. Pretend that this is the ground right here. This screwdriver is the ground. So the muzzle is pointing totally perpendicular to the ground, and the grip is pointing totally perpendicular to the ceiling. So what you want to do is you want to actually push the grip away from you. If you're standing here, push the grip away from you so that the muzzle is now at an angle to the ground and the grip is pointing towards the wall or towards whatever's out there that you want to point towards. What you're going to do now is you're going to go ahead and you're going to pull the trigger. You're going to hear the hammer fall, right? So once that hammer has fallen, you want to take your mainspring housing with the bolt stop pin and put it back. Oops, I'm sorry, I put it in the wrong way. And go ahead and slip it back into where it belongs. Go ahead and replace that. This is fairly intuitive. You should be able to just kind of see how this goes. It's not the easiest thing always, but it's not very difficult really. I mean, it could take a couple of tries, it could take you a couple minutes to figure out how that works, but it's just basically a positioning thing. That's all it is. So you can tell you've done it correctly if the bolt stop pin is pushing out a little bit from the receiver. See how it's just kind of, hopefully you guys can see that, it's kind of pushing out a little bit, like maybe a millimeter, then you're good to go. Okay, so next thing you want to do is, we have the gun positioned like this, right? So what you're going to want to do now is actually just totally flip the gun. Take it like this, or like this. Now the gun is pointing towards the ceiling, the grip is pointing towards you and towards the floor. The muzzle is pointing towards the ceiling and away from you. Right? And this again, this is the ground. So once you've done that, you're again going to pull that trigger. You're going to hear it. I give mine a shake to make sure it actually goes. You can hear that something's falling. That's good. That's the hammer that's falling down. Let go of the trigger. Take your mainspring housing. Start to push it back in. You're going to notice, if you've done everything right, this is where you'll notice. This is where you'll know. You're going to notice that it doesn't want to go. So once you've got that springy pressure, go ahead and push it in and latch it down. Once you latch it down, you should be good to go. But you want to check to make sure. One last check. Pull this back. Pull the bolt back. If it goes all the way back, you're good. If it doesn't go all the way back, if it goes back to say here, here, then you're going to have to retake it apart and go back a couple steps and make sure that you actually get that springing pressure and that you've positioned the gun correctly every time, and you should be good to go. And that should be it, and hopefully that's noob friendly, because I certainly needed something very noob friendly when I was trying to put this gun back together. So, good luck.